Hi all, I'd like to continue the Evolution of Chess Style series from where we left off, which was looking at Staunton. I would like to now look at Paul Morphy. So he was the American genius that wanted to come to challenge Staunton. Well, Staunton was rather cagey about an official match. I mean, they did play a partners match, which Morphy and his partner won twice, and perhaps he should have lost one game, because then I think Staunton was desperately trying to avoid a match at all costs after that. Ego came as a barrier to the match. He didn't really want to risk losing. Anyway, the reason I'm triggered to continue the Evolution of Chess Style series is that I have been reading now up to page 140 of this book I mentioned before, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And okay, in this book, basically the notion of quality is looked at, and one of the main characters, he's kind of the motorcycle mechanic, and he's interested in the internal workings of his motorbike. There are definite practical advantages. He doesn't have to rely on anyone to fix his bike when it goes wrong. He understands more, the dependencies, the subsystems of the bike, the power system, etc. So he's got a conceptual model of the motorbike. It's not just something which he enjoys going around, travelling around motorways and mountains and whatever. So, but the kind of division, the friction between him and his friend, I think concerns, internal and external qualities, which are seen, internal quality is seen as a classic perspective, and external quality an aesthetic. And in fact, the two words can also be interchanged with a number of other things. For example, theoretic and aesthetic. And anyway, in the Evolution of Chess Style, Paul Morphy was in the Romantic era. If we look up romanticism, sorry, this is another replacement word for external quality versus classic, which is like internal quality. But romanticism, looking up in Wiki, is given as a complex artistic, literary and intellectual movement that originated in the second half of the 18th century, and in Western Europe gained strength during the Industrial Revolution. So it was partly a revolt against aristocratic social and political norms of the Age of Enlightenment, and a reaction against the scientific rationalization of nature, and it was embodied most strongly in the visual arts, music and literature. It's funny that chess had what is called the Romantic era, so maybe it's strongly linked to that maybe the Romantic era was praising the combination, the beauty of chess. And one of the most beautiful Morphy games in the Romantic era is when he was playing against two players, Duke Karl and the Count of Izzard, in an opera game. It was actually while an opera was being played. So Morphy was in a rush, I believe, to finish them off. So he played e4, and they agreed e5. He played knight f3, so they protected the pawn. He played d4, and now they moved bishop g4, so potentially they're giving up the light squared bishop, which in this kind of position, which can be opened up a bit with d takes e5 at some point, this light squared bishop could be very dangerous, especially sensitive points in black's position like f7. White actually immediately took, Paul Morphy immediately took on e5, they took on f3, and so he develops his queen now. After queen takes f3, it can swing on the third rank if needed, and provide a battery to this bishop. So if this bishop later moves to c4, the queen can potentially also move to b3 to provide extra strength for a battery against f7. But there's also this weak point on the light square, b7, which this bishop had just neglected. It just come from c8, and it's protecting b7. So there's certain vulnerabilities, especially on the light squares, already in the black position, and black is without that light square bishop now. So anyway, they played d takes e5, and Morphy targeted f7 immediately so the queen's already hitting f7, so black needs to defend f7, so knight f6, and now the queen shifted to b3 like previously mentioned. So we've got the battery on f7, we've got the double attack as well because the queen is attacking b7. So black decided to play queen e7, and instead of playing queen takes b7 here, which would have allowed queen b4 check and then even more delay to watching the opera, Morphy really wanted to finish them off quickly, so he wanted to keep the queens on and not just go for a bit of material. So he played knight c3 and they played c6, so seemingly everything's okay now for black. They're defending, you know, b7 and f7, so that earlier sin, positional sin of giving up the light square bishop, seems to have gone unpunished. Not so. Bishop g5, so Morphy inflicts a very nasty pin, and there's the question now, you know, how is black going to wriggle out to castle? So to get castled, this bishop would have to move out of the way. They'd have to waste time with g6 and bishop g7, for example. Well, instead of doing that, they decided, oh, we'll chase the bishop away first. We'll play the move b5. One principle, though, is that really you shouldn't try and play attacking moves when you're underdeveloped. It's you know, generally it can be punished tactically by the opponent who has the pressure, the initiative. So it's dangerous to try and pick a fight when you're not really, you haven't finished your development. And look here, black has not finished the development. So a move like g6 and bishop g7 might give them a small chance to do that. But no, they've just provided another weakness and source of weaknesses. And Morphy now lashes out at them by sacrificing material to capitalise on his extra speed of development. He plays knight takes b5. And this is really bad for them now. I guess they should have played queen b4 check to try and get the queens off. But they will be, you know, heavily material down after c3. And then if they took, then bishop takes b5 check and c takes b4. So they would still be in trouble as well. So they decided just to take that knight, but their king is stuck in the centre. So bishop takes b5 check, knight bd7. And now Morphy just castles queenside, so no more worrying about queen b4 check, that's gone. And the rook's automatically developed, hitting that knight on d7. So we've got two nice simultaneous pins going, one against the king and one against the queen. So there's huge pressure here. And basically, Morphy uses all his remaining resources up. You know, this rook's not in the game, and he brings it into the game now. After rook d8, he sacrifices with rook takes d7, removing one of the defenders, and now brings his other rook in to the attack. So there's an immediate threat now, bishop f6, and rook takes d7. So this is a really crushing position. So in desperation, they again offered, a bit too late now to offer the exchange of queens. Morphy just took on d7 check. So knight takes d7. And can you guess the move which Morphy used to finish them off? If I give you 10 seconds, starting from now. Okay, the move Morphy used was queen b8 check. So a temporary queen sacrifice. And after knight takes b8, rook d8 mate. This is a simple game, but I've chosen it deliberately because I think it has this notion of aesthetics and, you know, a reflection of the romantic era of chess. So this is more about external quality rather than internal quality. And I think as far as evolution of chess style goes, Steinitz, who was the first official world champion, took as examples for hypotheses from Morphy's games of, you know, for where attacks succeeded and failed, and he introduced the notion that the side with the advantage, you know, should seek to capitalise on that advantage by going for the attack. They're justified for the attack. They should attack, and if they have no advantage, then really the defenders should be able to defend. So there was a notion of this balance, you know, of advantages and transforming and increasing advantages. And so these internal qualities, they're like almost the engineering principles of being a, you know, motorcycle mechanic. They're the internal qualities of chess, which started, you know, for the first time to be formalised by that first world champion Steinitz, but the precursor is important to study in this romantic era chess, which is more concerned about combination. Now, in the world of chess, which I'm reading, it's interesting because it indicates, Morphy was not so unaware of the principles as presumed. He wasn't just into combinative brilliance, because there was this legacy that he was, from previous players who also, combinations were the style at the time. So there was this cultural drive to play in a combinatory romantic way. And chess wasn't a profession, so it was like entertainment. So it was great to have these masterpieces, and often these immortal games were created as part of the romantic era, which we love to look at today.